Generous Life on the Frontline podcast. What does life stand for? Labor, influence, finances, and expertise. And speaking of expertise, we've got a couple here tonight. Let me introduce to you BJ and John Bowling. Hey guys, welcome.
Hi.
Hi.
All right, glad to have you. I was looking through our posts the other day, and I see the presence of FPU, and I don't even know what they do. They call it FPU Military Edition? What do they call it?
Financial Peace Military Edition.
Call it FPM for short.
Before we jump into that, because there's so many questions, and so many people probably don't know much about how it works, and that capacity probably very similar, but yet there's different dynamics to it, of course. Tell us a little bit about you guys. How long have y'all, tell us about your family, where you're from. Can I ask how y'all earn money? How y'all earn income? Gives people some idea.
Well, I met my lovely wife at officer training school. We dated there, which I don't recommend.
Okay.
Took me a year and a half roughly to convince her to marry me, but good salesmanship after a long period. I served 25 years on active duty, Air Force officer, and then retired. And after kicking around for a while, I came back as a contractor, not a contractor. Didn't like that, and then went back as a civilian for the Air Force Lifecycle Management Center.
And you were initially enlisted.
Yes, I started off enlisted on the right.
Okay.
I got up to the right pay scale a little later.
Yep. Awesome.
We have 3 kids born and 3 kids borrowed. So we have.
So for a total of 6, 3 and 3.
Okay.
And we have 1 grandchild, another one due next month, and then another one due in January. So.
Okay. And you all live. Where do y'all live?
We live in the Dayton, Ohio area.
Right, Patterson Air Force Base.
Okay. All right. Awesome. Okay. So, and what you said, what was the name of the area you're in the military? The life cycles, or what did you call it?
Air Force Lifecycle Management Center. They do acquisition, and I'm an engineer in the avionics engineering office.
Okay. All right. Yeah. I needed some more perspective on that because I would have no idea. So that's perfect.
I'm
That's
a nerd
perfect.
working with nerds.
It's nerds everywhere. I love it.
Best
Okay.
part is I get to argue for a living.
So give us a perspective. How number one, how'd you all find Financial Peace University? What's a little bit of your story that brought you to where you were starting to serve?
When we got married, John was active duty and I was a disabled American veteran, a disabled vet.
Okay.
And I came from a family with no debt. And John came from a family with lots of debt.
A normal American family.
We were trying to adjust our lifestyles as a newlywed. And our diaconal minister at the church we were attending said, hey, there's a guy coming to speak. His name is Larry Burkett. We'd like you to go through his training. So we went through that, did that for a while, got really burnt out when we were in California, got stationed overseas.
Then a remote.
And we no longer were hosting Bible studies or doing any type of financial counseling. And
in short, we fell off the wagon.
We did. We moved to Washington, D.C. and pretended we were Congress. and about that time, John was retiring from the Air Force.
Okay.
And things were not looking good for us financially. And
now, what year are we talking about now?
this was
I retired in 06, and
Okay.
the housing bubble burst in, 07, 08, right?
Oh, you got the wake-up call. All right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So
Okay.
Stupid came to visit.
So the only debt we didn't have credit card, medical, anything. It was strictly all real estate.
Are you one of those military families that you kind of had this rental property and you were also over here doing that? You hear that a lot on Dave's shows.
Right.
We did that one time at the wrong time, and that was in Washington, D.C. before the bubble burst. So we got caught with a significantly overpriced and underwater property.
Okay.
And then we also ended up with one here in Ohio.
How'd you start engaging back again?
A marriage seminar at a local church. We went there, and we just needed to recharge our batteries. And sometimes we would just go and to a seminar and try to remember that we did love each other despite all the stress. And with that.
But I was sitting on the freeway, stuck in traffic in Nashville, and this big billboard with Dave's face on it.
The bald head was there.
Oh yeah, the bald head. And I was sitting in the traffic while the show was live, so I dialed to the station, and then I called John at home and said, you need to Google this and listen to this because he is as sarcastic as you are.
Wow.
I prefer to think of it as putting it real.
It's a gift.
Well, actually, you weren't quite sold. You were.
I was warming to the idea.
So then we went and took a class, and then he said, I am back all in.
So you took FPU.
We did.
That's correct.
Okay.
And then John said, I am all in. This is the thing we're going to do together in retirement.
Can you tell us what baby step you were on now?
Currently on 7.
Okay.
But maybe tomorrow back on 6.
Okay. All right.
So we are in the process of negotiating a house that's 3 times more than the house we're currently living in.
Okay. All right. Negotiations occur. That's okay. You start off coordinating regular, normal FPU classes?
Correct. Church that we had gone to the marriage seminar at approached us and said, hey, would you be willing to facilitate a class? And we said, absolutely. So then after we did that, they said, would you be willing to facilitate at the YMCA? And we said, yes. And then I found out about the FPM. And so then there was 2 couples on the military base. We were able to convince the chaplain that it should be a go. And we've been doing that for 3 years now.
Yes. One of the biggest issues was the chaplain's office had been holding back on policy because they thought there might be marketing. And that's really the single biggest difference between Financial Peace Military and FPU. FPU will mention other products, other things, other stuff. FPM has absolutely no mention of other products or other stuff. It is just the material.
What are some of those scenarios where you sit back and you're going, here's why it feels different when you're dealing with military families? Talk about the military family being on a base, holding these things on a base. What's kind of different? How's the flow go?
The toughest part is just the difference between the enlisted and the officer rank.
You don't separate them in class. You bring them in together. So on the sign-up roster, there's no rank. They may be wearing their uniform, but that's okay. We kind of impress the point that we're teaching a class here. This is an academic environment. We're not going to stand on rank. We're going to talk like people. We do occasionally get no-shows, but it's typically a mission-related change rather than a personal change.
We're actually doing the 13-week one currently.
Okay.
And we will be switching over to 9 weeks. So that's the other difference. And I really prefer the 13 weeks just because it gives you 4 more weeks of accountability and 4 more weeks of that cohesive group.
Team building. It also gives you more opportunity to build habit because in 13 weeks, you're going through 3 complete budget cycles.
Absolutely, you are. So for some folks on our podcast, they're not even going to realize there was a 13-week. When everything went to 9-week, that occurred fall of 2012. If they do get deployed out, okay, they get on their mission. Do you have some who are kind of watching it online where they are and communicating back with their spouse and trying to at least study it together? Or?
That is entirely dependent upon the deployed location, but
okay.
The military tools that are available to Financial Peace University Military Edition members, they have access to the audio online and they have access to the spreadsheets or the worksheets and all online. We do encourage them to remain in communication because during deployment, there's nothing more important.
2 of the spouses are on a mission right now. So
Okay.
They're deployed or temporary duty for a couple of weeks during this, and they should be returning just in time for dumping debt lesson 4.
Do you sometimes have the enlisted walk in and they really have no financial issues at all, but the officers carry more debt?
Oh, absolutely.
And they're like, dude, you're stupid. I mean, I can't say it to you, but man, you're dumb. I mean, I'm just curious. How does that play out sometimes?
Let me just say that there's plenty of stupid to go around. Most of our young people have bought into the marketing and
Right.
They believe that they owe it to themselves, that they deserve the new car without having saved up for it. So there's no real consistency in that. It's just a matter of who believes the marketing, and
Right.
It's pretty widespread.
You know, I remember seeing as I've driven by that there is a lot of stuff right outside of base.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, absolutely.
What is there? When
First
you hear
place,
Dave
a pawn
say,
shop.
say it again.
Pawn shop is the very first place out the gate.
Well,
Really?
actually, it's a dry cleaners, then the pawn shop, then a used appliance store. But you get the idea there. And then
Yeah.
restaurants a little further down.
And
Tattoo parlor, car
deal-
parts.
and car dealerships.
Boy, you know, those young guys come in, they get that bonus check for sign on and it's just gone. You know,
It
they
is,
spend
and
it
it
before it
really
was
is.
just, that was free money, baby. I'm just going to have a good time. So,
And it's depending on where you're stationed, it's either a catamaran or a small sailboat along the Gulf.
okay. When you get to the investing side, talk about what's it like talking to the military folks about it? versus a traditional group?
Certainly. Well, we have to talk about the Thrift Savings Plan, or TSP. That's the military 401k equivalent. We also have to talk now about the balanced retirement system versus the traditional retirement, since Congress has given an option for some folks to convert to this new retirement system.
And what does that do specifically? What does that mean?
What it does is the traditional retirement is more like a pension, where the
Okay.
government retains complete control of it and their investments and all that. And it's a guaranteed kind of thing. But
only for the military member.
for the military member, not necessarily for the spouse. There's other add-ons and insurance that go with that, survivor benefits and all that. But for us to talk about it, most folks are wondering, should I convert to the new retirement system? The big difference is the new retirement system is based mostly on using that TSP methodology, the 401k, with military contributions to essentially replace the traditional pension and give you more control over the investments your money goes.
And that will only work if the people put it in there.
Like a 401k, it's only good if money goes in.
And that's what we really have to convince these 18-year-old and 22-year-old young people. Just showing them the Ben and Arthur chart doesn't always cut it, because they just say, well, I can wait. You can't wait.
Can you give us perspective for some of the new enlisteds that come in?
For the young enlisted person who's single and living in a dormitory on base, they don't get a housing allowance and they don't get subsistence because meals are provided. But when you move off base, then you get a basic allowance for housing, which is not taxed. So there's always questions about how do I roll that into my 3 to 6 months of expenses? So we do have to deal with some uniqueness in that perspective. They're looking at having a good 3-4 year job run, which most of them have never seen before.
Some of these are college age students and
Correct.
a little bit older. It's totally voluntary if they want to come to the class, right?
Correct.
How does it get promoted on a base?
We have to do that very delicately because it's considered religious education because of the scripture verses in FPU and in the FPU edition of it. We have to go through the chaplain's office.
Family Readiness has a financial class.
But its primary focus is to help you raise your credit score, which, as we know, Dave, finds to be rather hilariously bad.
Wow.
And then you've got the chaplain's office, us, trying to reverse what Family Readiness has just been counseling them.
There is one other unique aspect to the military life, and that is security clearances. A lot of the young people believe that they have to maintain a credit score, a good credit score, in order to keep their clearance. And I try to explain to them that, no, you don't. I keep my clearance without a high credit score because it's only used for derogatory information. So if your credit score is low, if you're late, that's derogatory information. That means you're subject to financial leverage by spies and bad guys. Generally speaking, if they're young, single, enlisted, they'll stay in the dorm until they make a particular grade, depending on the base. Here, it's roughly about E5, E4, E5. So for us at the Air Force, it's senior airman to staff sergeant. And that range is when they typically start looking at moving off base.
When you go rent an apartment from the corporate people and they do that credit check, you can actually get a letter from your base command or your
first sergeant.
First sergeant typically stating that you're in good graces and please rent.
So how many classes have you all done FPM?
We'll go with 5.
For those who know people on military bases, they're near military bases, to teach it, could it be a civilian that comes in and teaches FPM?
Absolutely. One would have to coordinate with the chaplain's office on the base and get a visitor pass to come and teach the course. That's all it would take.
So that's kind of the challenge all throughout. You know, they may be in a community, have a base near them. They can at least go and try and see if they get access the chaplain area to see if they offer it, or to ask that question maybe.
Oh, absolutely. Your reserve centers would be able to have access to it. National Guard.
National Guard, yes.
National Guard.
BJ and John, thank you very much for spending time here. It's going to be a lot of fun to share this, and they're going to learn a lot from it.
Thanks.
Thank you.
All right. Hey, everybody, we're excited that this was happening today with John and BJ. It was a super day. Just remember, we are here on this podcast, a video cast, because we are here to train each other up, get better at what we're doing. That's all we're doing. We just keep sharing on the Facebook page. We share within our group. We do some one-on-ones, but now this podcast is just kind of that next level for us. So just remember, it's about generous life, but we're here on the front line. Every one of us is frontline players. We're on the front line trying to help people change their lives and help families to help their kids. It's all life changing. Take care. Have a great week. Bye.